DG. Now, I'm not going to waste time. Let me welcome everybody to our meeting. It is abnormal for us to have a meeting in Thursday afternoon, but because of due to the our program, NCOP program, that we are under pressure to debate these budget votes in the next month. So that's why we schedule our meeting Thursday afternoon. Normally we know that our committee is sitting on Tuesday. So that's why some of the members are still busy there and there, but they will join us. They will find us on our way. I'm not going to waste any time. Minister and Deputy Minister, you are welcome. Honorable members, you are welcome. Our officials, both from Parliament and from the department, you are welcome. Aska?
Chairperson, yes, Chair.
The agenda for today.
Today's agenda is the department's APP and budget, and then the adoption of the minutes and reports that's before the committee, Chair. That's all we have today.
Oh, thank you very much.
Chair, if I may, I've given the apologies. I've just received another apology from Mamgwenya. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone who moved for the adoption of the agenda and also the apologies? Oh no, before that, let me check from the minister. Minister, from your side, do you have any apology?
No, I don't. Just to say, Deputy Minister, in fact, has just sent me a WhatsApp message. She's got load shedding. She's just struggling to connect, but she's pursuing connection. So she just asks for understanding. That's the only apology I've got.
Thank you, Minister. All of us, we are struggling with this load shedding. So anyone who can move for the adoption of agenda and the resolution. Yes, sir. Honorable
Chairperson, it's Nana.
Honorable Nana.
I move for the adoption of the agenda, sir.
And the apologies, or only for the agenda?
No, both, sir.
Both, okay. Any seconder?
Chairperson, it's Nana.
I second, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Abuskachne. Now the apology and agenda is adopted. Without wasting any time, let's go to the item. And then they will present, and then we'll take it back from you when everything is done from your side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. And let me just, first of all, take this opportunity to extend words of solidarity and I think also condolences to honourable members who are from KwaZulu-Natal and also, of course, to members of the public who would be from that province and who would be listening to this portfolio committee today. I think that the events that have taken place there have definitely shaken all of us. And I think that as a department, we are obviously not in the forefront of the relief efforts, but I think it's important to say that at the moment, the one area that we are supporting our counterparts in KwaZulu-Natal, both in the provincial government and also at municipal governance level, is doing an assessment on the impact of the floods on the waste management system, and of course also the impact of the flooding on the difficulties that would have arisen with regard to marine litter as a result of the large volumes of waste that would have moved through the water systems and into the oceans. And we are currently doing an assessment on that, and in due course we should be in a position to interface with our counterparts on the relevant support they might need. I think it's also important to say, Honourable Modise, that of course there is broad recognition that this particular extreme event is a result of climate change. And as we know, the East Country is the half of the country prolonged periods without rainfall and rise in temperatures, fire, and so on. I think it's also important to say that both the province of KwaZulu-Natal and the city of eThekwini do have climate resilience strategies. And I think that one of the issues that we have to look at going forward is how, as we enter into what His Excellency President Ramaphosa described as the third phase of the
recording in progress
processes of building back better, we would obviously have to be informed by what those climate resilience strategies would be telling us. Of course, also from a support point of view, we have been working with other district municipalities to help them develop climate resilience strategies. But I think the big challenge that faces our country is how we begin to budget for the infrastructural changes that will be necessary. And we understand that in mainstreaming these budgets, it will be coming about in a situation where we're still dealing with the aftermath of the COVID pandemic, where we're still dealing with significant backlogs of infrastructure and in the built environment. So this process is not going to be an easy matter. But we do recognize that considerable thought is going to have to go into this going forward. Let me just say that in terms of the current APP, obviously from the point of view of our synergy with overall government priorities, we are still interested in promoting good governance. And in this regard, we have struggled with our audit outcomes for many years, and we are continuing to work towards the unqualified audit outcome. We're also continuing to work towards a situation where we fill all funded posts on the establishment, and where we also make sure that we reach the target of 50% women in SMS posts and 2% of persons with disability. We have made progress in that regard. As you know, many of our senior management team are now women-led, but obviously we are not there yet. Of course, a lot of work has to be done in improving our environmental programs and making sure that we achieve our job creation targets. And I think that obviously as a department, we also have a number of commitments in terms of our international obligations relating to climate change, biodiversity, prevention of desertification, and also a whole lot of international protocols we are involved in the chemicals and waste sector. I've already spoken about the importance of promoting better waste management, and even without this particular situation in KwaZulu-Natal, we are working as a department to try and strengthen the waste management function in municipalities and in provinces, and to deal with air quality issues. And I think you know that we've been doing a lot of support work in KwaZulu-Natal in relation to some of the chemical spills that occurred there during the unrest last year. Of course, the other areas where we would be wanting to make sure that we do better relates to the pakisas, the ocean economy pakisa, the waste pakisa, and the biodiversity pakisa. These would all be areas that we would be prioritizing in this particular financial year. So allow me to pause there, Chairperson. I'm going to request DG. I don't think that we would, this meeting is not set down for as many hours as the Portfolio Committee. I would want to suggest that you do the presentation at a high level, and then we move to the specific slides which the committee had asked us to focus on. There were particular slides that the committee, additional slides, and then the overview of the budget, rather than going through all of the targets. That would be my suggestion. And then we can obviously take input, and the team would be available to answer questions. Over to you, DG, through you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Minister. Good afternoon, DM. Good afternoon, Honorable Chair and honorable members of the Select Committee. I will then, as guided by Minister, take the committee through the overall at a high level. Nick, I'm not quite sure whether you are or Gift uploading our presentation. Thank you very much. The presentation covers the overall strategy of the department, and I think I'm not going to go into details. I will just go through it, and then it covers the way in which the department, in coming up with the APPs for 22-23, we continue to align ourselves to the medium-term strategy framework for the current sixth administration, and also the NDP and the economic recovery. As Minister has highlighted, we have also responded, in addition to what is in the APP, we've responded to key areas of interest that the committee has requested us, and I will be requesting the various program managers to assess in as far as the areas are concerned. We can move on to the next slide. I think basically here it's around a constitutional mandate and also the legislative framework and enabling that enables the mandate that we have as a department. We can move on. These are the various programs, and apologies, Honorable Chair and members, I think we have missed Program 8 and Program 9. We are our APP focuses on administration, which provides leadership and also executive support, corporate services in the department. And we also have the legal and authorization compliance. And also we have oceans and coasts as a critical area of focus. Climate change and air quality management is an area of focus. Biodiversity and conservation is quite, it's a critical area. Environmental program, which implements expanded public works program across the environmental sector. Chemicals and waste management that manages and ensures that waste management policies and legislation is implemented. And we also have 8, which is forestry management, and also 9 is the fisheries management that also implements in line with the MLRF, which is the Marine Living Resource Fund. These are high-level strategic outcome goals that we have as a department. And the first goal is around environmental economic contribution, which must be optimized. And we do that through facilitating sustainable socioeconomic growth by optimizing and also upscaling the contribution of the environmental sector to the economy, but also ensuring that we pursue low carbon economy as a result of a well-managed just transition. The second goal that we have is on environmental and ecological integrity, safeguard and enhanced. And there, as a department, we continue to provide leadership in promoting and ensuring environmental sustainability through management and utilization, protection, conservation of our valuable natural resources. On socially transformed communities, as a department, we do have a responsibility in terms of facilitating sustainable economic growth and development through catalyzing and also upscaling contribution to the environment sector, but also managing transition, which requires strong institutional governance mechanism, which will then enable or create an enabling environment for stakeholders to contribute to transition. The fourth one is on global agenda, and Minister has alluded to that, the international cooperation, regional and international cooperation supportive work that we have on environmental and also sustainable development priorities. This is key for us as a department in terms of then ensuring that we pursue both regional and also domestic, regional, and global environment agenda. And then the last is around a capable and efficient department, where as a department we need to ensure that we improve on our service delivery capacity and through the various enabling areas of ICT infrastructure, our HR strategy, but also ensure that we have a developed and skilled, transformed and diverse staff in as far as this is concerned. The culture and the values of the department also is an area that we also work on as a department. Next slide. In the next slide, Honorable Chairperson, I think I'm not going to go into details. Minister has already covered these aspects, but safe to say that for the 22-23 APP, we continue to align ourselves to government and NDP priorities. Critical is around the building of a capable state that serves the people. And also this is also aligned to Chapter 13 of the NDP around building a capable state. And Minister has alluded to these aspects. I'm not going to repeat. The other aspect is around investment, jobs, and inclusive growth. And in pursuing those priorities, we also have pursue priorities that will eradicate poverty and improve lives of our people, and that mainly focusing on our public empowerment program, which we do in the various programs, but also under a main program of environmental program where we have Epwp. What is critical around this is ensuring that we do create jobs, but also work opportunities, and focusing also on ensuring that youth and women and people with disability do benefit from this job creation. The other one is on education and skills for a changing world, clearly outlined in Chapter 9 of the NDP, which also is outlined in our MTSF in as far as improving education and innovative training. So as a department, we do have a responsibility of improving human resource capacity for the sector, looking at the beneficiaries that we train, and also the interns that we do bring on board for them to gain experience. And within the interns appointed, we aim at ensuring that 50% are women. The next slide talks to a better Africa and a better world. And also these are two critical priorities of also transitioning to a low carbon economy, where as a department, and Minister has alluded to this in terms of our work and the extent on climate change and ensuring that we have a climate resilient society. And this is going to be a very critical priority around ensuring that we implement climate change adaptation and also mitigation programs across the various municipalities. 10, on promoting health, environment is quite key, where there are threats on environmental quality and human health. Those must be mitigated, and as a department, we need to deal with issues of waste management. We also need to be phasing out hazardous chemicals and also monitoring very closely the issues of air quality in the various localities in the country. And lastly, around how then we contribute to the economic recovery, which Minister has already alluded to. Without waste of time, Minister, I'm going to request that Program 1, when you go to Program 1, we have our outputs there, and I think on slide 14, Minister has already indicated our focus on administration. As a department, we are qualified, so we are going into an element of ensuring that we focus on getting an unqualified audit. And we do that through, we have an audit action plan, which we are working on, but also we need to be improving internal controls in order to deal with all the issues that have been raised in the previous years on our audit, which has resulted in qualifications. Expenditure management is also critical. and effective turnaround in terms of service delivery, ensuring that we fill our vacancies within stipulated timeframes, and also having our SCM procurement process being done within stipulated timeframes, even paying service providers as regulated. Minister has alluded to the issue of employment equity. When you get to the next slide, it's outlining then the outputs of the department in the key outcomes, where we're looking at external audit opinions. That's what we're aiming for, an unqualified for 22-23. And also we need to be improving on efficiencies on our budget spending. We have set ourselves a 98%. When you get to the next outcome on socio-economic and transformation, it's around achieving 65% of overall expenditure from the BBB compliant, and 30% of that expenditure must be from companies that are owned by women, at least 51% ownership of women. The next is around the capacitation and also issues of representation of women. We currently, and Minister has highlighted that we're doing our level best. Executives, DDGs, almost all of them are women. However, at SMS level, we are still lagging behind. I think we're sitting at around 45 or 44. We are going to aim for 47 with an accumulation by the end of the term of 50%. Also on disability, it's going to be 1.8, which will then accumulate to 2% at the end of this administration. We must have achieved 2%. These are the intents which we are going to be bringing on board. And I've already alluded to this, and I will just take it as read, Honorable Chair. And critical here is that we want to also maintain the 50% women in terms of those intents, and also looking into the bursaries. We are going to be looking into 100 of them, 40% being full-time. The next slide talks to the service delivery standards applying across the department of paying our service providers within 30 days. We are aiming 100% of that, and also responding to hotline also within 3 days, Chair. Coming to the second program, I will then also just flag at a high level in terms of the areas of focus, where we would want to implement our national environmental compliance strategy. And we are looking at conducting compliance inspections, and the number is reflected on our slides, 165, and also a criminal investigation that must be finalized. We are aiming at least 46. We do appreciate that it's not just the department involved. There's other public bodies like the NPA and the SAPS and so on. 65% of inspection. We continuously do verification of stockpiles around rhino horns and elephant tusks. That's what we are aiming to do. And then finalization of the review of the current compliance and enforcement strategy. Our EIA, we want to ensure that 100% of all the EIA are done within stipulated timeframes. And in areas where it is SIP related projects, we are actually aiming at a shorter time frame, which is outlined clearly in our presentation. Energy generation, monitoring energy generation applications, and also effective legal support. Chair, with your permission, I will take the targets and outputs as read. We can move because then the next slide talks to the actual targets that are informing the critical aspects in as far as the priority focus are concerned for that program. Can I request that the head of branch 2 takes the committee through this area? It's a critical area of interest that the committee requested that we also cover. DDG, Vanessa, can you take the committee through?
Thank you very much, DG. Good afternoon to honorable members, Minister and Deputy Minister, DG, and other colleagues on the line. In terms of the legal challenges around environmental legislation, specifically on management of commercially important biological resources, air quality management and enforcement, there are a number of pending litigation, but we are highlighting in this particular slide recent challenges, just to get the committee an idea of some of the areas that we are being challenged on. With regard to addressing overfishing, one of the areas that we addressed was a notice which was sought to caution the public regarding drone fishing, and that it is in fact illegal in terms of the general regulations which were published in terms of the Marine Living Resources Act, and that enforcement action would be taken. This was recently challenged. However, the challenge was dismissed by the court, and the court upheld the interpretation of the department, which was that it was in line with the regulations, and the notice merely sought to caution the public in this regard. In terms of the total allowable catch allocation, this was also legally challenged, and the challenge that was raised was that it was unsustainable and that the allocation was not informed by science. The court did in fact direct that total allowable catches must be scientifically considered, and any deviations from the scientific recommendations must be sound. The total allowable catch for the 2021 was set in line with the criteria of the judgment. However, the fishers lodged a complaint that this TAC was too low. The minister then sought advice from the Consultative Advisory Forum, which recommended an increase of the TAC, but that it be reduced in the near future. And this recommendation was implemented by Minister in line with the advice of the forum. We also recently had a High Court challenge ruling, which challenged the fact that the regulations giving effect to the Highveld Priority Area Plan was not in Mpumalanga, was unreasonably delayed. The court made a ruling that minister must finalize those regulations within 12 months of the order. In fact, those draft regulations have already been published for public comment on the 11th of February 2022, which commenting period closed on the 14th of March 2022, and the department plans to finalize these regulations before the end of the year and is in the process of considering those comments. Thank you, DG. I believe that is the end of my slide. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DDG. I will then cover the priority focus on our APP in terms of the program 3. The first is on the Oceans Economy Master Plan. And this is in the process of finalization. And during the course of the year, we would want this to go through the cabinet system and be approved by cabinet, but also look at an implementation plan that will focus on interventions that will have to be implemented. The other area which we're focusing on oceans and coasts is the implementation of National Oceans and Coasts Water Quality Monitoring Program, where we will then be looking at about 30 priority areas, and also the four coastal provinces. The other one is on implementation of estuarine management strategy, priority intervention. We're going to be looking at those four areas highlighted there. And also the critical one is on the implementation of the penguin management plan, which is currently at a finalization stage in terms of it then being finally adopted, and also for issues around oceans research. Then the rest of the slides are then highlighting the actual targets that are informing these various areas and priorities, but also they take into account the standard delivery improvement plan in terms of the areas of critical marine research permits, which must be done within stipulated days. And we are aiming at 100% for those permits. And also the off-road vehicle permits within 90 days, and the dumping permits being finalized within the stipulated timeframes, and also looking into permits for activities within your marine protected areas as the standards that we are aiming for. This one, we are targeting 95%. On climate change, the focus priorities that we are going to be looking at, climate change and air quality, is around climate change mitigation intervention that will have to be undertaken to facilitate implementation of the country's low emission development strategy. And key to this is going to be around the carbon budgets, allocation methodology, and also on the proposed 5 environmental sector emissions targets, which have been approved not only by MINMEC, but also has gone through to Cabinet. The critical part for the financial year 22-23 is legislation. Currently, the National Climate Change Bill is with Parliament, and we are hoping that that bill by the end of this financial year is going to be promulgated and finalized. We're also looking at effective coordination of international work. And then the priorities that follow are those that are in the APPs and are informing those areas of focus that I've highlighted. I'm going to request Mr. Jongi to just take the committee, Honorable Chair and members, on the questions that were raised specifically for us to lift up for this committee on air quality and also climate change issues. Over to you, Jongi.
Thank you, DG. Good afternoon, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, Minister, Deputy Minister, DG and colleagues. Yes, in terms of the question around air quality monitoring, we have about 136 government-owned air quality monitoring stations. 15 of those stations are owned by the South African Weather Service, and they are mostly in what we call air quality priority areas or air quality hotspots. The rest of the stations are owned by provinces and municipalities. All the stations are required to report to the state of the air to the South African Air Quality Information System, which is a web-based online system for reporting and communicating air quality outcomes. Also, the location of the air quality stations can be easily verified using the department's national GIS layer of air quality monitoring. So we can see them precisely where they are located around the country. So we can move to the next slide. In terms of the challenges that we're facing in terms of managing air quality monitoring stations, they fall in 3 areas. The first one is around budget constraints. Largely due to the current economic climate. We also face the challenge of aging monitoring infrastructure. In fact, some of the air quality stations have gone beyond their life expectancy. So the question is, what interventions are being put in place to address that? So in the short term, there's a couple of interventions that are being put in place. One of them is the recapitalization, particularly for those stations that are nearing the end of their lifespan, and also appointment of service providers to support the management of those air quality monitoring stations. Also, majority of the government-owned monitoring networks, again, largely owned by municipalities, have dedicated financial resources to support monitoring stations and maintenance, at least for the next 3 years. This ensures sustainability in the short term. There's also investigation, because in the market, alternative low-cost alternative measuring methods for air quality exist. So the sector is looking at deploying these alternative air quality monitoring stations in some areas within the country. Then we also face the challenge of increasing theft and vandalism of the monitoring stations. These, of course, are very sensitive and highly expensive piece of equipment. So when we lose them, it's a challenge to replace them as well. So some of the stations are being relocated mostly to police stations where applicable. Some have been moved. For some of the stations, there are engagements with SEPs to make sure that they are moved. Of course, we do take into account the adequacy of the police station in terms of the area where the station should be located, as that plays a role in terms of tracking air pollution adequately. Then, of course, there are capacity challenges in terms of maintaining this equipment, given the fact that it's complex equipment, and often for some municipalities, there are no dedicated air quality management structures and resources. So in that regard, the sector will work on a long-term sustainable intervention on air quality management with the support of SALGA. The outcomes will include recommendation and advocacy on resource requirements for municipalities to ensure effective service delivery. In fact, today we had an engagement, and SALGA was part of that engagement to look at how we develop this plan moving forward. Next slide. So in terms of the potential to integrate with green economy initiatives of government and the private sector, there's a couple of avenues that are possible. Some of them have been explored, some are being explored. Just to observe that the air quality monitoring networks forms part and parcel of the country's Earth observation, linking also to climate observation and other data necessary, which is collected, for example, around GIS, land-based information. So it forms part and parcel of this Earth observation of the country. So it's critical in answering some of the questions. For example, monitoring air quality can tell us something about climate change as well, as we will see shortly. So air quality monitoring station can also provide research, awareness, and knowledge management tools to measure green economy initiatives, such as, for example, in the case of the urban spaces where green initiatives are being implemented, like green transport strategy. Implementation of those interventions can actually reduce air pollution, and air quality monitoring can assist us in tracking that easily. Also, air pollutants are also short-term climate forces. In other words, they have a short time horizon in terms of their potency to climate change, roughly about 20 years. And therefore, they are important because at the moment we are at the extremes of or tipping points of the climate change. So air pollutants are being seen as a danger in terms of tipping us over those thresholds. So therefore, it's important to monitor them and also understand their contribution as short-term climate forces. So this is something that in the country we are doing at the moment, working closely with the South African Weather Service, where we monitor pollutants such as black carbon, which are very strong climate forces as well. There's also an assessment that is being done at the moment in terms of the just energy transition or the JET commitments and undertakings that have been made by ESCOM and SASO, and how we can integrate air quality monitoring to assess the efficacy of such interventions. Obviously, when you shift away, for example, from coal and other sources of air pollutants, we will be able to monitor the extent to which the quality of the air changes in that regard. So it's important that we can see how we can factor air quality monitoring in those interventions. So we can move to the next slide. So this is in terms of the Paris Agreement and its implications, particularly for the land sector. So an important aspect of the Paris Agreement is that it calls for a balance between anthropogenic emissions by sources and removals by sinks, as we address, a shift away from high greenhouse gas emission releases, especially in the second half of this century. So this is actually talking to achievement of net zero. That's the balance where it's being referred to in the Paris Agreement. So this highlights the significant role that the land sector will need to play in offsetting emissions as the world transition towards a carbon neutrality by mid-century. In the South African case, a recent study done by the National Business Initiative shows a couple of implications for South Africa, particularly in the land and agricultural sector, whereby earnings and especially livelihoods related to farm workers and timber plantations, as well as food availability that is at risk, particularly for the Western and Northern Cape. That is related largely to the fact that those two provinces face serious water stress. And it's worth noting that those two provinces actually account for 95% of South Africa's deciduous fruit exports, 25% of national agricultural earnings, and 35% of national agricultural employment. So it just shows the impact of climate change in those two provinces has a serious implications for this sector, the land and agriculture in particular. And then looking at the aspects of healthy diets, looking at the growth in population and looking at the impact of climate change, the study shows that, in order to meet a sustainable healthy diet for all South Africans will require a more than 170% increase in soybean and vegetable production and 20% increase in deciduous fruit production by 2050. That is, even if production for exports and livestock is diverted to local food demand. So this will require a serious consideration of how land use management is dealt with. As we know that we have a lot of, grasslands that are being converted to settlements. So in some of those cases, we lose land that could have been ideal for agriculture and so on. And that also means we lose the carbon in the soils permanently as we do that. So we can move to the next slide. So in terms of the opportunities that are available, looking specifically at the land sector and what solutions can be implemented. And, the advantage here is that some of these solutions are already in existence, but generally they need to be scaled up. So the first one is effective use of remediated coal mine land. Of course, that is land that is available and can be used for rehabilitation. And in terms of solution, there are pilots that can be implemented to remediated mine and land and water so that we can grow agricultural crops. There is an example already that has been explored since last year, where wheat has been grown in land that was originally a coal mine, but has been since rehabilitated. So that's one example that can be scaled up, and we can look at other crops for doing that, not only wheat. Also in terms of something that affects both adaptation to climate change and mitigation of climate change is what we call climate smart agriculture, where we expose especially small-scale farmers to cropping and agricultural practices that will allow them to cope with the changes in climate, but also practices that ensures that the manner in which they manage their croplands does not realize greenhouse gas emissions. So in South Africa, we have had a lot of implementation of climate smart agriculture led by Department of Agriculture, working closely with Agricultural Research Council and the South African Weather Service. Again, this is an initiative that needs to be scaled nationwide, and the means and also the approaches to implementation have been developed. It just needs scale up. And also another opportunities around climate early warning systems. In this case, there's a couple of solutions. Early fire detection and management systems installed for purposes of forest management. As you know, especially in the southern coast, this is the biggest risk. But also we look at automated weather stations to monitor lightning and heavy rain, because that also has serious implications, as one has seen as well. But that also has implications for land, because lightning can also trigger fires which can destroy forest land. Another opportunity is the use of market-based instrument to stimulate implementation of land-based activities. So here in South Africa already we have what we call the carbon offset scheme, which forms part and parcel of the carbon tax. This scheme is administered by Department of Minerals and Energy. And in that scheme, companies can offset some of their emissions by investing in forest stewardship programs where there's afforestation and reforestation of land. So again, this is an area that can be looked at for scale up. And also protection of soil integrity and water resources. Here, the use of alien invasive species once harvested for the purposes of green electricity and heat generation is something that has been explored and can also be, scaled up. But at the same time, this alien invasive species can be used to produce what we call biochar, which can be then again be fed into soils as an amendment for rehabilitation, because that improves the organic qualities of the soil. So these are the opportunities and solutions that most of them are already in place, but require scale up. So that was my last slide. Thank you, DG.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. The next program is Program 5, Biodiversity and Conservation. In our APP, we have key focus areas in terms of priority. One of them is on the implementation of the high-level panel recommendation and also the interventions on biodiversity. Critical on this is ensuring that it's mainstream throughout the biodiversity and conservation work that we do, working very closely with also our entities. But we also are looking at a white paper on conservation and sustainable use, which is currently on its route to the cabinet process, and of which upon being approved by cabinet, it will go out for public consultation and the processes will follow thereof. The other aspect on this program is around expansion of the conservation estate. We have set ourselves a target in terms of the number of hectares of land that must be added to conservation estate. And we're also looking at the other priority of effective protected area management. And as a department, we are going to be focusing on overseeing implementation of management improvement plans of the various management authorities that we have in the country, where they are implementing these plans towards improvement of protected area. And we do use a MET system and also ensuring that they achieve the required required score in as far as MET is concerned. We do have, Chair, I think at the end of the presentation, the meaning of some of the abbreviations that we've used in the presentation. The other aspect is around implementation of biodiversity economy program, obviously mainstreaming your HLP, but also programs that will ensure that as a department, we contribute to jobs and skills and also community development in as far as biodiversity is concerned. What will follow, as I have been highlighting even on other programs, are the actual targets, which then are aligned to these broader priorities that we have covered in the priorities of program 5. The next program is then on environmental programs. Environmental programs, in terms of the focus areas, this is where our public employment happens. This is where environmental program, infrastructure program is implemented, and the issues around job opportunities, and also on the various NRM programs, like you're working on fire, working on water, where there's a lot of opportunities in this program in terms of employment creation. So that is a key focus in as far as this program is concerned. But added to that, it's elements of also training in as far as environmental awareness is concerned. The other aspect that we are highlighting, Honorable Chair and members, on this program, this is a program that has contributed to us having negative audit findings. And in as much as we are going to be focusing on core responsibilities around public employment, at the same time, the program needs to deal with certain weaknesses in controls that have been identified for us to improve in our audit findings moving forward. One critical aspect is around effective project planning and implementation that requires that we do ensure that we implement our projects, and our projects are done within budget and within stipulated timeframes, and they are indeed completed. So that effective project management planning will be a focus area. The other one is mainly around paying service providers, and I think in as much as this is critical for the overall department, it is impacting most this program, given the various service providers and also the various queries that we have had in this implement. So we have a plan of ensuring that we regularly and effectively engage on these and resolve these queries and support the various service providers that we are working with in as far as these programs are concerned. So, and as you go into then the details of the APP, which I'm going to take as read, we then stipulate the various outputs that we have set ourselves in our APP in order to ensure that we achieve the key priority focus areas. Program 7, Chair, members, which is chemical and waste management. Here, the key priorities which you will see in our 22-23 program priorities are issues of waste management. This is a key priority. Implementation of the expanded producer responsibility program is very key, and we believe that this is definitely going to unlock jobs that are linked to this program, especially focusing on packaging, electronic sector, lighting, and so on. We are in a process of this implementation, and we are hoping that we are then going to be accelerating the implementation of this EPR in the current year. There are also a notice of intentions in terms of Section 18 of management of lubricant, oils, pesticides, batteries. This was the notices of intention were published, and we are going to be looking into then engaging on some of these areas, looking at waste diversion. Here we are looking at working very closely with various industry players in as far as paper and packaging, e-waste, and also lighting and waste tire diversion, and trying to improve in the manner in which we implement some of these interventions. Section 29 plan is very key in the year of 22-23, and it is in our APP, where we would want to look at the publishing. This plan has been published, and we've recently just closed the plan for public comments. It will then go through the processes until it is finalized, and this focuses on industry waste tire management. We're looking at having this done in the current year, and even prospectively looking into a tender process that is going to appoint the implementer. At least we must start on those processes before the end of the year, the plan having been finalized during the course of the year. Efficiency in as far as water management licenses that we issue as legislated within required time frame, we're aiming at 100%. We do realize here, Chairperson and honorable members, that there are certain dependencies that we have. We need to be working very closely with our sister departments, Department of Water and Sanitation. Also around this program on waste management is an issue of working very closely with local government. We need to provide support to local government in a form of training, but also cleanup campaigns that the various municipalities have. We then also need to ensure that we work and support them in as far as that is concerned. What will follow, Chair and honorable members, then it's the actual targets that are informing these key priorities that we have focused on. I'm going to request the acting DDG to talk to an area that the Select Committee has requested that we lift up as part of presenting this APP. Acting DDG, Mr. Mkwena, can you take the committee through the slide? Thank you. You are muted, Tate Mkwena. You are muted. Please unmute. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair, honorable members, Minister, DM, and colleagues. On the challenges related to waste management and the potential to integrate the competencies with green economy initiative in government or private sector, we have looked at a suite of options of challenges. For instance, the need for increasing waste collection, which is waste services in municipalities, because these vary from one municipality to the other in terms of either the size of the municipality or the capacity in terms of availability of the equipment to do the actual waste collection. In some cases where there is informal sector participation, it helps because they also get involved in the collection, which assists the municipality. And the issue of landfill size compliance, an area that working together with Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, National Treasury, and the South African Local Government Association have amended the policy relating to municipal infrastructure grant to ensure that there is allocation and enabling policy environment for funding or relating to waste collection as well as waste services. Because previously, you didn't use meat for yellow fleet or infrastructure related to waste because it wasn't classified for that for audit purposes, and also in order to provide an enabling environment. There has been revision of the policy to allow for inclusion of the yellow fleet in the list of items that can be procured by municipality using the MED grant, which helps quite a lot from financial resources point of view, and at the same time, equipment that is quite critical for waste collection. Illegal dumping and pollution hotspots are areas that through the cleaning campaigns, awareness raising and aftercare for sustainability are working on. The aftercare relates to, as opposed to the traditional way of doing cleanups and leaving the area afterwards, or 2 days or 3 days later, it's back to the way it was before the cleanup. So aftercare sets in place systems to ensure sustainability of the good and a clean state of that polluted hotspot that was previously polluted through illegal dumping. And the removal of the illegal dumping, we're looking at a mix of options that include also as part of the aftercare to say, if you remove the illegal dumps or litter and leave it like that, chances are that people who were dumping waste there will go back if they don't see any activity. But through the creation of parks in an area that was previously a pollution hotspot, you are able to prevent illegal dumping because there will be an activity, and at the same time, the activity is assisting towards greening and benefiting the community as a recreational side. The implementation of extended producer responsibility schemes, as well as the tire industry waste management plan, assist in diverting most of the waste that will easily find itself in the illegal dumps or pollution hotspots, because it promotes more waste valorization in that it gives value to waste, and it encourages collection because more people see waste as a resource, and you find the informal sector collecting it more because they're able to take it somewhere for sale and make revenue or an income for a living from selling waste that they would collect in the different areas. In that way, is the EPR as well as the TAR plans are assisting in the dealing with the illegal hotspots, because the types of waste that is now collected through EPR scheme, for instance, separation of waste at source, it no longer going to hotspots or polluting the environment because it's now well taken care of through proper systems and infrastructure that is put in place. I've touched a bit on the issue of the funding and subsidy as it relates to the work of the municipalities in waste collection, but maybe the element of SME support and development is also quite critical, and to indicate that through the Recycling Enterprise Support Program, the department is able to assist through monetary terms some of the SMEs who qualify for enterprise support. There is also discussion with the Department of Small Business Development in terms of ensuring and providing more support in a collaborative manner. But we also do have what we call non-financial support in the form of training, workshops, and cleaning campaigns. So through cleaning campaigns, we are able to collect waste and working with other strategic partners. The waste that is collected is then taken by the SMMEs for contribution to circular economy, contributing to green economy. And with municipalities entering into agreement with the extended producer responsibility scheme, we see more participation in the green economy by most stakeholders, and the SMME sector also participating and benefiting from the EPR implementation. The integration of the informal sector, also a very important area, which from time to time requires the collaboration and working together between private sector, government, as well as the informal sector on how best the informal sector can be integrated. In this area, we have developed the waste picker integration guideline through the assistance of the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, which have to pave way in terms of guiding how the integration of the informal sector can take place for them to participate in circular economy, for the informal sector to participate in the green economy. Thank you very much, DG and Honorable Chair and Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Our next program is the Forestry Management. And the areas of focus in this program, forestry management, firstly is around the greening program, where we are then targeting to have 120,000 trees planted. And these are informed by the available resources. We are obviously cognizant of the fact that we have a responsibility and a target of 10 million trees, which actually culminates to 2 million trees per year. And for us to then augment the resources that are there in the fiscus, we need to be pursuing partnerships with other levels of government, and also industry, business, and civil society to try and increase the number of trees to meet the annual targets that we have, given that our budget as it stands is not able to provide the number of trees as per the target. The other area, and this area Minister has already alluded to, around the implementation of the Forestry Master Plan. The Forestry Sector Master Plan was approved and has been implemented in the first year. We just need to now accelerate, bringing on board capacity that will ensure that it is accelerated, and also all the stakeholders involved, labor, industry, and also the government departments that are supposed to be assisting in certain enablers in order for us to implement the different focus areas. We then need now to be accelerating in as far as the master plan is concerned. The other one is around plantations. We are looking at 4 plantations handed over to communities, and it will be done through your community agreements. And we are then focusing on those four communities, which we are hoping that by the end of the financial year 22-23, we would have then finalized and handed over those plantations, obviously following the route of the forestry agreements. The last one is also around the post-settlement support strategy, which we need to have a plan, and that plan must be approved. Here we have to work very closely also with our sister department, DALRAT, in ensuring that we have a proper plan that will then be implemented, thereafter. As the other slides, we are then highlighting the actual target outputs, which are informing these priorities, but also we're looking at the standard, the service delivery improvement indicator that we must adhere to. The last program of the department is Fisheries Management. And on Fisheries Management, we are in a process of concluding FRAP, which is the Fishing Rights Allocation process. The adjudication of application, and also it was finalized by the 31st of March 2022. We are in the phase of appeal, which has been extended until the end of May. And it is then the intention that we finalize this process, but also we also deal with the Western Cape process of rights allocation, which is still a subject of court, and we are hoping it can be concluded and we have a clear sense of the direction from the court and we finalize that allocation. We are also looking at the Aquaculture Development Bill. This is an area of opportunity in as far as jobs are concerned. It was being consulted upon, and this bill needs then to be submitted to Parliament in the current financial year, which we are in. We're looking at also submitting a West Coast rock lobster anti-poaching strategy for approval in the current year. And critical also in as far as fishery management is concerned are issues of compliance and enforcement, where we would need then to ensure that there are inspection conducted. We are aiming for that 5,500 inspection, and also 290 verifications that would be conducted in as far as enforcement and compliance is concerned. And the last critical priority is around an integrated development support project that will pilot small-scale fishing cooperatives. And we are aiming at about 20 of them in the financial year 22-2023. I am therefore going to request the DDG to just lift up the areas that the Select Committee has raised. I think it's on slide 64 in relation to fisheries management. Thank you, Chair. Can I hand over to Ms. Middleton?
Thank you, DG, and good afternoon, Minister, honourable members, DM and colleagues. The Select Committee highlighted 3 issues for a more detailed response. The first one is on the small-scale fisheries allocation of fishing rights in the Western Cape. And the progress thus far is that court papers have been lodged in the Western Cape High Court to review and set aside the allocations in the Western Cape. And preparations are underway to start a new process with the aim of allocating rights by the end of this calendar year 2022. In terms of FRAP, the 21-22 fishing rights allocation process, as DG has already reported, there were 2 extension periods for the submission of online applications, and the outcomes of those applications were published on the 28th of April 2022. The online appeals process opened on the 29th of March for a 30-day period. However, Minister has granted an extension of the appeals period until the end of May 2022, being mindful that April month is characterized by a number of short weeks and long weekends. And this extension is to allow applicants and appellants more time to submit their appeals. And once the appeals process has closed, the Minister is the appeals authority and her team will consider all the appeals. And then the committee also asked for an update with regard to the small-scale aquaculture development program. And there we have developed a small-scale aquaculture framework. We've identified suitable species that are for both marine and freshwater that are fast-growing in the South African context. We've identified suitable production systems that are suitable for small-scale farmers. We've identified key challenges that may be faced by small-scale farmers and producers in the production phase. And we've identified key problems that they will face producers. And the development plan includes the types of support that we will be providing the small-scale aquaculture sector, recommendations with timeframes, identification of key role players and identifying roles and responsibilities, identifying the necessary policy and legislative interventions required, assisting with access to funding, the development of a cluster model based on regions and species types, market access, skills development, technical support, and data collection, ongoing data collection and real-time data collection on small-scale aquaculture producers. Thank you very much, DG.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. This is the last slide of this presentation, but I'm going to request that we load the budget slide, the budget presentation, so that we can just cover the last aspect of our presentation in terms of how we are resourcing these plans that we have shared with the committee. And I think I'm not going to take long. You can put it on slideshow. This is the budget for the department, vote 32, and for the year 22-23, up to the outer year of 24-25. What we are demonstrating in this or presenting in the slide, Honourable Chair and members, is the allocation per program, the 9 programs which we have just gone through in terms of our plans, and how much is then allocated to these various programs. For the first year, we have a total of 8.9 billion allocated by National Treasury. And then for the middle year, 23-24, we have 8.9. You will note that there's no increase given the fiscal consolidation. The budget has just been maintained at the same level in the year that follows. However, in the outer year, there has been a slight inflationary increase, which then resulted in our total budget of 9.4 billion. Coming back to the year 22-23, you'll note that a lot of resources are going through environmental programs, and one has highlighted that this is a key program in as far as public employment is concerned. We work very closely with this program, work very closely with other programs, and also with the entities of the department in as far as issues of job creation, training, and also also infrastructure related to environmental programs. And that's what I wanted to highlight from beyond. I think environmental program is the largest allocation. We do have administration at 1.2 billion, mainly because of the centralized IT, your human resource related matters in terms of recruitment, but also in terms of the PPP project that we have for our building. That's why we then have a 1.2 billion sitting there. Biodiversity and conservation has also almost $1 billion. It's 930 allocation, and also then followed by your forestry, your chemicals and waste, and the rest of the other programs. So that's how then the budget is presented for the year 22-23 per program, and also for the year 2 and the outer year. In the next slide, it's just the same information, the same budget, but this time it's in accordance to economic classification. How much goes to OPEX, the various areas, the current expenditure, which mainly covers our compensation of employees and also goods and services in the department, and also issues around interest and rental on land. We also have transfers and subsidies, and it does highlight the areas where we make transfers. The departmental agency is the largest transfer that we make, given that we need to be supporting our agencies, given that they do provide also, the services that they provide to a certain extent also is a public good. And then we have payment of capital assets, as I indicated, our building, and also machinery in terms of tools of trade for the various staff members in the department, and issues of software and intangible assets. So that's how then the economic classification is broken down of the budget of the department, and which amounts to 8.9 billion for financial year 22-23. In the next slide, Honorable Chair and members, we are also, as I indicated, just breaking down the entities that we have and the various transfers, which I have already indicated in my previous slide of economic classification, that we have to then support them, given that they do provide a public good as part of their services. And those are the various breakdowns for the South African national parks, 514 million. The Sanbi entity is 493 million. SOURCE, which is your weather services, 402. Isimangaliso is 145, and we also have the MLRF, mainly operational cost there, which is 316. And then we do also have a contribution to the national regulator compulsory specification, given that we utilize their service, which is a government entity. We've classified it, but we only transfer about 13 million. The next slide just breaks down a critical aspect on Epwp programs and allocations that we've made to the various entities and what those programs are. So we have your infrastructure programs, which are Epwp related, your biodiversity program, greening open space, and also people and parks programs, and also issues around environmental monitors that are there in the parks. Also, in as far as the NRM, your EPWP programs, those are the various list of EPWP programs that we have funded the various entities on. You will see that on Groen Sebenza, which is an NRM project, we have, these are graduates that are then employed to be given experience in various work. We've given about 100 million Sanbi has, and also Isimangaliso. Critical also to highlight is around infrastructure support. I think that is in the next slide, where we have also supported the various entities on additional infrastructure in order for them to improve on their maintenance of infrastructure, which will at the end also improve on their operations. So we have allocated on biodiversity infrastructure for Isimangaliso and Sun Parks. So that covers how much the entities are actually going to get from the department, and the rest will then be funding. The rest will be funding the APP programs, which we have already outlined. Thank you, Minister and DM. Honorable Chair, this brings us to the end of our presentations. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Minister. DM, let me officially welcome Deputy Minister, because the time when we start the meeting, she was struggling to log in. We did receive your apology, DM. Minister, put your apology. Now, Minister, do you want to say something before I can give to members?
No, Chairperson, thank you very much. I think we've given a lot of information.
DM, do you want to say something?
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and good day to all members of Parliament. No, Chair, thank you very much. As Minister has said, I think I joined when the information was given to the committee. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, honorable members, let me welcome the presentation from the department. And now it's our time to ask questions to the department. I'll see by hands, or I'll call you one by one. Or if you don't have any question, it's still fine. Honorable Abaskachne, Honorable Nana, Honorable Mambibi, Honorable Tsube, Arnold, don't you have any question?
Yes, Chair, I have.
Yes, we do, Chair.
My hand is up, Chairperson.
Oh, okay, but I don't see your hand here. Or maybe it's because of this. Oh, yes, now I can see Mam Kathy, Honorable Arnold, Honorable Nana. Let's start with Mam Kathy. Honorable Abaskachne.
Thank you very much, Chair. I have quite a few questions, but let me just start with the introduction that when the Minister did, and then some of the other things that was said. On page 8, the influence of a court case on the just transition with regards to low carbon emissions. I would like, the Minister gave us some input there, and it was part of that, of a further presentation. But then if we go to the air quality maintenance on page 36 and page 37, the that court case and the impact of that, and I know that you said that the regulations are going to be hopefully finalized by the end of this year. Do you foresee that there will be a big influence or a big impact on local governments as is? Because as we've seen in the presentation, there's a lot of things where the provincial parliament or provincial parliaments and the national parliament departments is trying to help and support, as you've listed there, to help local governments in that. And the question I'm raising here is, on the one hand, the emissions has to come down, and the just transition for us is over quite a period of time, and there's various schools of argument, as you well know, of saying that the time frame that's been given for just transition is too little. But taking into consideration the situation of our country, we think, or a lot of people think, that period is enough. But the court case, if the department's appeal is not going to be upheld or whatever, will have a big influence on the sort of setting the rules, but then enforcing that. And those enforcements will, who's going to take responsibility for that? Yes, the department has to do the inspections, or in that regulations, are that going to be sort of devolved to local government, or will that stay with national and environment, because that has cost implications, and specifically in areas where municipalities, or some of these municipalities, already is suffering. So that's one thing. Then I would like to know on the waste management, the policy that's been changed to include the green, the yellow fleet for the MIG funding, or is that a must or a may for municipalities? And if it's a may, are there a certain procedure or processes that these municipalities has to follow to be able to make use of that funding? Then on page 46, the environmental programs, we see that that was one of the departments that influenced the audit outcomes, but it was also the department that had forensic investigations in those departments. And I would like to know, has that all the investigations that has been finalized, did it lead to any disciplinary hearings or any disciplinary cases? And what is the case of that? Has all those things been finalized? And people-wise, those who might have been guilty or not been guilty, has that been sorted out? Then I would like the department, through your chair, to please do from at one other stage to the select committee, the waste management plan, a presentation, or at least inform us when it's been totally adopted and agreed to, what it is going to entail, as well as the there was another one that I wanted to sorry, I made a lot of notes here. The waste pyramid. Okay. Then shortly, I would like to know, the minister referred to pollution, or pollution is a big thing, and it's one of the strategic goals. But do we look at pollution in rivers as well? And then let me just look at the waste, the water plan. I have to get to that now. On page, the 5 strategic water resources that's been sort of secured. Does that include specific rivers that is now very polluted or not? And then I would also like to know the one Ramsar site that's been referred to in the APPs, which one is it? The one other thing that I would like the department to do as a presentation on is the pilot study on the 20 co-ops for fisheries. Will that pilot study, what is the time frame for that? And is the sort of a report system, a progress report system to the department, and what kind of, what is it? What kind of report system is it? And then just a question, a simple question on APPs. I see that very often the implementation of a report or of a plan is the outcome, and the environmental infrastructure management plans, applications, you said you want to have 100% of that. But is there an indication, is there a sort of average of how many of these plans or applications did the department received in the previous years? And isn't there sort of a benchmark that can be set? Because there's no ways of, I do understand that sometimes you get maybe 50 of these applications, and other times you might get 200 and so on. But over the years, isn't there a benchmark? Because just to say 100% every time it's a little bit difficult to keep up with that. And then I would like to know on the payment of 30 days for from the department side. Is there any outstanding payments to small SMMEs? And if so, what are the kind of outstanding, what is the outstanding amounts? Because I've also read an article that if you put together all the outstanding payments of government departments to small SMEs, it's a tremendous amount of money. Chair, I will first stop here and give the other people some chance, and if there's another opportunity, I will ask the rest. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Katie. Honorable Arnold.
Thank you, Chairperson, and greetings to the Minister and the Deputy Minister and all the members, honorable members, and then the officials. Minister, we are dealing here with, in the country, with a climate crisis, and we need to put serious attention to climate change in the country. But having said that, let me come to the department, because the first question that I want to ask is, what are you going to do in the department to encourage a culture of good government and good governance in the department? Because every time when the department comes before us, especially when it is the APP and the budget, we know in terms of the delivery of the department and the challenges of the department. And I think as the committee, we demand a clean audit from your department, because we can't continue wasting resources. We can't continue every time with your internal controls that is not up to standard. This time around, we need to see a delivery, and in terms of good governance, we need to, the department needs to show that they are serious about good governance. Then, my second question is, why is the department still struggling with their 2% employment of people with disabilities? I can't understand that. Sitting at 1.8%, meaning at the end of the term, they will have the 2%. But why are they so slow in terms of this target and not getting the 2% that is required from them? Then the other question is, how are you going to ensure that your environmental program, seeing that it's getting the big chunk of the budget, this time around is going to improve in terms of the performance of your environmental programs? And then, Chairperson, as the committee, we note the extension of the appeals process until the 29th of May. With regards to the conclusion of the fishing rights here in the Western Cape. This is a long outstanding process. And in the meantime, the poor communities, fishing communities here in the Western Cape, they are suffering and facing hardships in terms of their rights. Then I've mentioned this, but I think we need more explanation from the department in terms of how they're going to improve on the internal controls this time around, especially when they are dealing with how are they going to deal and prevent irregular expenditure. Then, Chairperson, I think also the department needs to come and give us the assurance now in terms of how are they going to ensure that their branches, and we know some of the branches, they know who they are, this time around will perform optimally and functionally. Then, Chairperson, there's a 1.8 billion allocation to public entities in the budget of the department. We know we are spending and giving a lot of resources and funds to public entities. Can we just check with the department in terms of their turnaround plans to be financially sustainable? Is there a plan? And by when can we expect these entities to be financially sustainable? That is my questions for now, Chairperson. Thank you.
Now call Honorable Nana.
Well, thank you, Chairperson, and apologies for not switching on my video. I tried a short while ago, but I'm worried my bandwidth is not so stable. I got kicked out earlier on, so if you will bear with me, Chairperson.
We understand. We understand the issue of dairy.
Okay, thank you. Chairperson, let me also start by commenting on the introduction made by the Minister. And I do think that it was quite befitting that his opening remarks, by and large, covered the situation in KwaZulu-Natal. And I cannot agree more with the Minister. I do know for a fact that South Africans as a nation, we have this special way of closing ranks and pulling together when we face adversity. And I have no doubt in my mind that as a country, we can do that again. So In her comments, the minister also mentioned something to the fact that her department with other partners are investigating the extent of the impact of sewage that got swept into river streams and the ocean. And again, I accept that. But Minister, we have stood, and I'm not trying to downplay the situation in KZN in any way. It's serious, but we have stood in numerous platforms in Parliament. I have raised the issue of sewage and used oil that has been running in Swartkops River in Port Elizabeth. And from Swartkops, it runs straight into the ocean. I have raised in some of my speeches the issue of raw sewage that runs through Cradock in the Eastern Cape, runs straight into Fish River, from Fish River straight into the ocean. I have raised the issue of raw sewage in Grahamstown, Makana, that runs straight into Machana River stream, straight into the ocean in Port Alfred. And the kind of zeal that your department, Minister, is displaying this time around, I would want to urge your department to approach each and every sewage spill that goes into our river streams, that contaminates our river streams and eventually the oceans, with equal zeal. And if we can do so, I have no doubt in my mind, municipalities that are found to be allowing raw sewage to run down into our river streams will wake up and smell the coffee. The first question that I would want to raise, Chairperson, one of the clauses of the Freedom Charter that I agree with is that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, black and white. And when one talks of demographics, more often than not, we get to think that demographics essentially means one race group dominating other race groups, or other race groups dominating one race group. My understanding of demographics is that if there is a government service, South Africans of all races must have an equal opportunity to access that service. Now, this takes me to the bursaries you mentioned, DG. I would like to know how many young South Africans in terms of their race groups that benefit from your bursaries, particularly the bursary that has got to do with maritime studies. Secondly, I've heard before that your department and the Department of Education are working towards fully introducing maritime studies at high school level as a subject. How far is that work? Where are the bottlenecks, and what are you guys doing to ensure that bottlenecks are addressed and our kids get introduced to maritime studies at a very early stage And not only when they get to university do they get exposed to fields like maritime studies. And thirdly, Minister, as you will know, I am from the Eastern Cape. And the key burning issue in the Wild Coast today, I'm glad you mentioned conservation. The key burning issue in the Eastern Cape, particularly in the Wild Coast, is the intentions of Shell wanting to do exploration in the Wild Coast. How much of an engagement have you had with your counterpart, Minister Gwede Mantashe? How much of an engagement has the department had with Shell, despite the fact that there is a court order stopping Shell from doing that, from doing it? How much of further engagements have you had with your counterparts, all role players that are affected, to stop Shell from continuing with exploration? And have the people of the Wild Coast been taken into confidence insofar as this is concerned? The fourth question, Chairperson, I had the DG, unless I'm mistaken, I've had the DG mentioning some, I think it had to do with the forestry sector, that targets were not met, either targets of planting trees or targets of harvesting trees were not met. Now, I would want to know reasons why those targets were not met, and if there is a human element to it. What measures have been meted out to those that have been found to have contributed to targets not being met? And lastly, DG, linked to this question, seeing that one of your key programs hasn't met some of its targets, do you and your senior management expect a performance bonus? Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, honorable members. Honorable members, please, those who have questions, can we allow the minister, because she has another appointment, to comment, though we still have other questions, Minister. The DM will take them up. So you can come in to comment on those questions that have been raised by members before you leave.
Thank you very much. And please excuse me if I don't put the video on. The signal is not good where I am. Chairperson, let me just make a couple of comments. First of all, I would want to just thank all the honourable members for the questions. Secondly, I would want to please, that's my phone. I'm sorry. Chair, let me just say that first of all, I think that the officials will deal with the details of the questions. But let me just say that firstly, I think that we all understand that with regard to climate change, there are two things that we have to do. The first thing is that we have to reduce our country's dependence on fossil fuels, and obviously through that we have to meet our goals in terms of our nationally determined contribution to reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And we have committed to do that in a way that does not make workers who are vulnerable in the coal value chain to be the ones that would be facing the consequences of those policy decisions. And obviously what that means is that we are doing a lot of work on researching alternative use for power stations that are due for decommissioning, repurposing those power stations to be used with renewables and other fuels, but also looking at how we develop value chains in areas such as the manufacturing of components of renewables, so that we are increasing work opportunities in those areas that would be most affected by climate change. Clearly, there is an integral relationship between the work we are doing to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and the improvement of air quality. I wouldn't really want to talk much about the case, but I would want to say that we are going to go ahead with developing regulations, and we have never had an objection to developing those regulations. And indeed, we had tried to settle this court case by saying we are willing to develop those regulations. Obviously, environmental law and air quality legislation is the role of many different levels of government, and therefore it's also incumbent to support the development of other levels of government to work on compliance and enforcement. Let me also say that with regard to issues of waste management, I completely agree with Honourable Nana that sanitation is a major challenge. But I think in this instance, that is the responsibility of water and sanitation. It's not the responsibility of our department. We would be more involved in issues of solid waste management. But we completely agree with him that the efficiency of water and sanitation in this instance must be replicated in other instances where there are spills. Because we are a water scarce country, and this type of pollution of our water systems is extremely serious. With regard to the issue of seismic blasting, in the particular instance that he is talking about, it's beyond our jurisdiction. I'm only the appeal authority, otherwise it's the role of Minerals and Energy, and I know that your committee covers both departments, so I think Honourable Nana's questions would be best put to the Department of Minerals and Energy. However, what I can share with you, Honourable Nana, is that because of public concern with regard to the nature of seismic blasting and on whether or not mitigation measures are adequate to protect ocean ecosystems and, of course, our fishing industry, we are engaging in this financial year in more systematic research on this matter so that we should be better able to inform public discourse on this matter. Let me pause there, Chairperson. Those are the additions that I would want to make, and I know DG and Deputy Minister will lead our team in answering all the other questions, and I want to thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Minister. You are released, but before maybe you excuse yourself to our meeting, Minister, in our province, in our constituencies, we do have the disaster that caused by this issue of climate change. Also, like in KwaZulu-Natal, even here in Mahikeng and Tswaing, Mahikeng municipality and Tswaing, same have the floods in our municipality. Thank you very much, Minister. You are released. Honorable members, do you still have any questions?
No, Chair. Akiri, Minister is leaving, but the Minister, not DG, will respond to other questions.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Let me say, DM, it is appeared to some concern that the climate change bill that was tabled on recently incorporate the much weaker is no longer applicable. NDC from 2015, the commitment should have been updated by 2021 NDC. Can the department give us clarity on this, please? The second one, the committee is focused on the development of aquaculture within the country. One of the challenges has been delays in the finalization of legislation to guide the aquaculture development bill is near to completion. But that was concern about previous consultation. Can the committee please get update on the readiness of the bill for being tabled, for tabling? And then another question is on program 5, biodiversity and conservation. The target number of intervention in terms of wetland protection is also relatively conservative. Only 2 intervention per year. Is it sufficient considering the pressure that the ecosystems are facing? Also in program 5, the APP lists 800 jobs created with each biodiversity economy initiative. Clarity is needed about how is verified and how sustainable the jobs are. The committee will also want to see what is the future economy prospects of those individually listed as received training as a biodiversity beneficiaries. And if you give us the answer, please tell us for these 800 jobs that you are listed, tell us each and every province that is going to receive how many jobs and how many jobs in their municipality. If you are not ready today for that, please give us that information before next week, Tuesday. And then again, for program 5, the need for adequately trained local government officials for exceeded the target number for the indicator. With 278 municipalities in the country, the department is targeting roughly 1 official or councillor per municipality per year. How will this training benefit each municipality if you are training 1 official or 1 councillor? Is it sufficient? And then for program 8, Forestry Management, the department targets number of hectares of temporary unplanted areas, TUPs planted. What these species will be planted? If exotic species are introduced, will this activity not negatively impact on the work of working for the water? Where these exotic trees are being removed from the watershed? Those are the questions that I would like to ask the department, and then let me say again. Yeah, no, those are the questions. Let me pose the TM and your committee.
Chairperson, I managed to, I'm struggling with network this side as I'm on load shedding. I couldn't hear the one that was talking about forestry management where you spoke about the unplanted areas. But I heard the one that you spoken about the clarity on the climate change bill and also the one on the aquaculture issues and the biodiversity and conservation, 800 jobs with regard to sustainability. Can I then request DDG from the compliance, I think is DDG from the compliance and monitoring to just respond on the issues of the bills. If not, I would ask those DDGs responsible for those areas just to give information to members with regard to those two bills. And then DDG Flora will then give us the information with regard to the 800 jobs with regard to their sustainability. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear on the issue of the forestry management as I was kicked out and then I came in, and I'm struggling a little bit because of I'm in the dark here. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Okay, ma'am. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister and Honourable Chair. It is Vanessa Benderman, the DDG for Regulatory Compliance and Sector Monitoring. We're also struggling with networks. My apologies. With regard to the aquaculture bill...
sorry, TM, because most of the members are complaining about their network. Maybe they are not going to get the answers. Can't the department write those questions and they send us maybe by tonight or tomorrow? Because we want the debate is next week, that week.
No, that's excellent, Chairperson. I think I wanted to propose that, but I wasn't sure whether it's only myself who's got a challenge with regard to the issues of the network. But I think it will be proper if then we can respond by writing to yourself. As they can hear, DG, as you can hear that next week, members would like to debate on these issues there. So it will be proper for us then, when we leave here, go and prepare for the responses, even if it means sending them during the night. It will be very much appreciated. Thank you very much, Chairperson. And thanks to you, DG.
No, thank you very much, TM, for coming in. Let me take this opportunity to thank the department for presenting both TM and Minister and DG. Normally, other department it will be DG or TM, but this one, to make they show us that they take this committee serious. They came, Minister, Deputy Minister, and DG, and other officials. So by so saying, DM, you are released. Thank you very much. You must continue.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. And thanks to the members. With us, Chairperson, always together, myself and the Minister and the team.
Thank you very much.
And the team. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Members, while the members are leaving, can we continue with the business of the committee? Let me put the previous minutes in front of you for adoption, honorable members.
Honorable Chair, it's DG here. I'm assuming we are also being released so that we can go and respond in writing.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Honorable Chair. Thank you, members. Thank you.
Members, the minutes of last week for adoption. Honorable Member? Honorable Bibi, you were in the meeting. Honorable Bibi? Honorable Itumele Ntube, you were in the meeting.
Chairperson.
Yes.
Chairperson, I'm sorry, ma. I'm in the bundles here.
Yeah, the minutes and the report of last week.
Okay.
No, yes.
Or I move for the adoption, sweetheart.
Any second?
Let me second, Chairperson. Zube here.
Okay. It was the Tuesday's minutes, ne? And then the 90, is it the 90?
Okay, let me, Chairperson, if you may. We adopted the minutes of last week, which was 19 April. Now we need to adopt the budget vote report from last week's meeting. It was circulated to all members.
The budget vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Hey, bisano sami. Hey. Yayinodaka naqala sifuna ukuza apha. Sibekwazi ayinge okay ke mama.
Okay, sure good.
Izophindela emuva manje ngiyabonga sithando. Thanks love.
Yeah, my touch.
Well, sorry.
The budget for meeting for the budget for department. Are you moving?
Yes, I'm moving, Chairperson. I'm moving for the adoption of that budget, Chairperson.
Any seconder? Any seconder? Honorable Itumeleng, you were in the meeting.
Chairperson, can I just check if Mama Bibi is sure that she is moving with that adoption, because it would seem she is quite busy where she is.
No, she told us that she's in the bundles there and there. Mom Bibi?
Yeah, we are visiting a family that has lost 12 siblings at once. Now it's in the bundles.
So that's good.
So that's and three out of that 12, there were 15. 3 of them are not found.
That's bad.
Terrible, but we want to be sure that you are moving for adoption of the budget. It's terrible, yeah.
Yeah, that's bad.
Sweetheart, yes. I'm moving for it, sweetheart. I'm moving for the adoption of the budget.
Okay. Any seconder?
Chair, you can also second.
I can second because other members, Honorable Arnold and Honorable Ntube, they were in the meeting, but they are not. I second.
Chair, the only item left is the minutes of the 22nd of March, which was not adopted last week. We need someone to propose and second.
I propose. Oh, Ma'am Bibi.
Yes, I move for the adoption of the minutes.
And then I second.
Thank you, Chair. That concludes the business.
Thank you very much, honorable members. And Ma'am Bibi, be strong, Ma'am.
I will, I will, Master.
Affected by issue of the climate change. It affects everybody in the country. This is not a good for us.
Yes, and it's very bad.
Yeah, it's bad. We will keep on praying, and I will request all to continue.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Amo baby, I can assure you, the rest of you in KZN is in our prayers.
Thank you so much, bro. Thank you so much.
Keep strong.
Thanks, bad guys. It's very, since in the morning we're visiting siblings that are not yet found. Others, hey, funerals are tomorrow. We have got to attend to that, all those things. Yeah, it's so bad, guys. Very bad members.
It is.
Yeah, it's very bad. Yeah, thank you so much for your support, guys. I really appreciate it.
As Honorable Nana said, pray for the province, the entire province. We will continue to do that. Thank you very much. Honorable members, this come to conclude our meeting. Thank you very much for attending the meeting, from meeting after meeting, and even if there was no, you came to the meeting. Thank you very much. It shows a commitment. Thank you very much. This meeting is officially adjourned.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, guys. Bye, bye, Mama.
Recording stopped.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for your support.